Unbelievable discoveries in the South Pacific. Number 10. U.S. military equipment. After World War II, America had a surplus of military goods, especially vehicles that they were trying to sell. Things like bulldozers, jeeps, forklifts, tractors, and other machinery built for the war effort were for sale, but they failed to make a deal with the locals on the island. They deemed it to be too expensive to try to bring home, so they eventually dumped it off the coast of Vanuatu, right in the front of the locals. The island had been used to launch attacks on the Japanese, and now the area is underwater, and it's called Military Dollar Point. The island had been used to launch attacks on the Japanese, and now the area underwater is called $1 Million Point due to the expensive material and items that were carelessly dumped. Although at first, this sort of seemed like a heartless act towards the locals, but in modern times, it's brought a lot of tourism to venturing scuba divers who visit the island regularly. The decision to dump the machinery is still somewhat controversial and brought angst against the Americans from the local population. But still, it's not very often you can get an up-close look at American history such as this. Number 9. New Zealand Sea Monster. In 2013, a mysterious rotting sea monster washed up on the shore of New Zealand in the Bay of Plenty, terrifying locals. Here in this photo, you can see the long and sharp teeth of this ferocious-looking beast. A YouTube video was released showing the carcass of the half-buried creature and its gaping jaws, and half of the body is under sand. The woman who found this was dying to find out if anyone on Earth knew what it was. No one seemed to be too sure, despite the theories of it being an oversized croc. Other suggestions include a dolphin, a giant moray eel, or even a dinosaur. A marine expert certainly rejected those theories and claimed it was indeed the rotting carcass of a killer whale, still frightening nonetheless. Number 8. Megalithic Tongan Gate. The nation of Tonga is comprised of nearly 200 islands, with about 50 of them being settled. Archaeological evidence suggests that the ancient Tongans had a vast seafaring empire around the 13th century AD. Discoveries of stone tools were found as far away as Tahiti from rocks that were only found in Tonga. Here in this photo, we see a trilithon constructed from coral and limestone slabs that measure 17 feet high. This amazing structure consists of 2 upright blocks that weigh approximately 30 to 40 tons each. Local myths talk about a tale that this structure was constructed by a demigod called Maui. They believe that each stone was far too heavy to move with human power, and this took place 800 years ago. This structure also has astronomical significance too, which tells the positions of the sunrise and equinox as well. The coral limestone it's made from matches up with quarries from nearby islands, not the island that it's actually on, making it quite the mysterious structure. Number 7. A tree lobster. Never heard of a tree lobster before? That's okay. They were believed to have been extinct for the past 80 years until one was found on this remote island between Australia and New Zealand. Its jagged shapes make it impossible for humans to live, so that could possibly be why it's still alive. The giant rock island drops off at a nearly 90-degree angle, making it impossible for other creatures to live. But somehow, this tree lobster found a way to survive. The tree lobster is in fact a flightless insect about the size of a human hand. The scientists you see in this photo decided to explore this area since scientists claim to have seen evidence like droppings that might prove their existence. This has to make you wonder what other animals could still be out there that we once thought were extinct. Number 6. New Island. Since the Ring of Fire is located in the South Pacific, it's a hotspot for volcanic activity. Many of these volcanoes are underwater, so when one of these volcanoes goes off and the lava hardens, it can create new islands. This is basically how all the islands in the South Pacific were formed. So if you think about it, there's no reason why there shouldn't be new islands in this region of the ocean. This island here formed recently 40 miles off the coast of Tonga after a volcanic explosion took place. Some adventurers decided to explore the new island and take photos of this green lake. They described the ground as being still hot and that the lake smelled like sulfur. When the eruption went off, it actually destroyed the vegetation on those 2 islands next to it. Number 5. New Zealand Sunken Treasure. Divers who were cleaning a local harbor were rewarded with an amazing discovery of 868 gold coins. The harbor of Wellington has been quite messy lately, and many glass bottles and plastic materials were being removed, but they never expected to find anything like this. They appear to be of high value, but no one could figure out exactly why they were thrown away into the harbor. The crew couldn't tell where they were from, and the coins' origins are still somewhat of a mystery. After being down in the water for such a long period of time, it's believed the markings on them eroded, so we guess they won't be giving them back to the original owner. Number 4. Vanuatu Skull. Trying to piece together the history of the Pacific Islands can be difficult at times due to the lack of stone structures. Besides the Tongan Gate and Easter Island, there really isn't a ton of evidence of their ancient ancestors. Things that can survive the test of time, however, are skeletons. This 3,000-year-old skull you see in this photo was separated from the body and placed in an ancient pot. This comes from the Lapita culture who lived on the island of Vanuatu. This civilization inhabited many of the South Pacific islands like Samoa, Tonga, and all the way to the eastern coast of Papua New Guinea. Extensive scientific research was done, and it's believed that the Lapita culture are actually descendants from the people of Taiwan. This discovery also leads archaeologists to conclude that the Lapita were the first settlers of these micro-islands. Number 3. Jungle debris. After all the intense fighting that took place in the South Pacific during World War II, there's bound to be plenty of scraps from all these military vehicles. People are still making discoveries of all the wreckage that took place between 1941 and 1945. Here in this photo, we see an Imperial Japanese fighter plane that was shot down during the Battle of Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands. Children on the island still play at the beaches, right next to the debris of Japanese Imperial Navy transport vessels. The islands could be scarred for quite some time, even 70 years later. With advancements in drones and aerial technology, they're able to locate more wreckage than ever before. This Sherman tank we see here is left in the shallow waters of the Northern Mariana Islands. Number 2. Radiation on Bikini Atoll. Once the USA had captured much land in the South Pacific during World War II from the Japanese, they wanted to continue testing the weapons that won them the war in the first place to the absolute limit, and they would do so in their new territory. Bikini Atoll was where the US tested their most devastating weapons like the hydrogen bomb. Castle Bravo was the codename for the dry fuel hydrogen bomb that was detonated. It was the second most powerful device ever detonated, only behind Russia's Tsar Bomba. Bikini Atoll was the site for 23 nuclear detonations. Researchers from Columbia University in the US recently discovered that the islands are still radioactive, and no one knows for sure when they'll be safe to live here. And number 1. Chuck Lagoon. In 1944, there were more than 60 Japanese warships and 200 aircraft that met their watery grave in Chuck Lagoon in the South Pacific. This is located west of Micronesia, where an intense battle took place. This was one of Japan's strategic bases that was wiped out by Allied forces. On land, this place looks like a tropical paradise, but below the surface lies the biggest graveyard of ships in the world. Due to its history and the spooky remains, it's become a popular scuba diving location and left nearly untouched due to fear of bombs going off. It's been rediscovered in recent years, and explorers have had the opportunity to see the devastation. Here in this photo, we see a tank covered in barnacles at the bottom of the lagoon. Some scuba divers will even come across skulls.